I am Sally, a 31-year-old working housewife. I live with my husband, who is the same age as me and also works at a company, and our 5-year-old daughter, who recently started to talk a lot. We're not particularly affluent, but we're a generally happy family. Suddenly, a storm has come upon us. The storm is my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law has been living alone since my father-in-law passed away. We discussed whether to live together soon after we got married, but we eventually decided not to at that time. It was for the reason that it would be easier for both of us. However, now that 5 years have passed since we got married, my mother-in-law is getting relatively old. Living alone as an elderly person can be challenging, and above all, we are worried about her. My husband made time to visit his mother at her home, but this seems to be a big burden for him. Seeing my husband taking on everything so I wouldn't have to, I made a decision. It was to live together with my mother-in-law. I cannot just see my beloved husband who is trying so hard. With a surge of emotion, I mustered up the courage to ask my husband, "Should we live with your mother?" He looked surprised and asked, "Are you sure?" If I had to answer yes or no to whether I'm okay, the honest answer would be no. But I also feel that current situation, where my husband is bearing the burden all the time, shouldn't be continued. I'm busy every day with housework, childcare, and my part-time job, so I can't provide much support for my mother-in-law. Anything concerning my mother-in-law should be basically resolved by my husband. We've discussed many times what we think is important for our future life, and we began living together with my mother-in-law. Sally, thank you so much for living with me. On a spring day when the cherry blossoms were beautifully falling, my mother-in-law came to our house and said that with tears in her eyes. Seeing my humble mother-in-law, I thought we might be able to live together more smoothly than I had imagined. But, at first, my mother-in-law was humble, but as the days went on, her true colors gradually began to show. She began to torment and make me suffer. I regretted my naive thinking. "Isn't this seasoning too strong? Sally, I can't eat it unless you make it lighter." When I made the dish lighter as she requested. "Just because an old person is eating doesn't mean you have to make it this light. You're making fun of me, right? You're the worst daughter-in-law." These are just the beginning of her torment. "My clothes are all expensive. They get damaged in the washing machine, so please hand wash them all." When I asked if I should send them to the dry cleaner, she replied, "Why are you suggesting such a luxury? We live off the money my son works hard to earn. We should be frugal and use it wisely." I think to myself that if she could just pay for her own clothes, all would be resolved. But that opinion seems to be off the table. My mother-in-law, who speaks such spiteful lines with a smile, must be aware that she is tormenting her daughter-in-law. By the way, this is still the beginner's level. As the level increases to intermediate, it goes like this. "Sally, when the face is bad, makeup wouldn't change. Why don't you just stop? My grandchild is lucky to look like my son. They also look like me, so they don't have to worry about their parents in the future." Honestly, I don't want to hear such things from my mother-in-law who wakes up at 4 a.m. and spends over 2 hours doing makeup. Her bare face wandering in the living room after a bath looks so different. It's hard to believe she's the same person. The desire to be a beautiful woman regardless of age is wonderful, but isn't her face too white? I feel like asking if she's using white lead. Furthermore, her cheeks are absurdly red. What's even funnier is the mouth painted bright red. She might as well be a clown. Well, I always teach my daughter not to badmouth people's appearance, and I really don't say it. I can tolerate her belittling me. but I'll never forgive her for discarding my favorite makeup set without hesitation. One day, I came home from my part-time job and realized all my makeup sets has been thrown away. My mother-in-law nonchalantly said, "I threw them out." When I asked her why she had discarded them, she replied, "Haven't I been telling you this all along? There's no point in wearing makeup when the base is bad. Stop wasting money on such frivolous things and start saving. You don't need to wear makeup from tomorrow." I'm so family-oriented, even teaching you how to save money. I want you to thank me from the bottom of your heart. Who the hell would ever thank you? If I were in the mountains, I would have definitely screamed that out loud. The echo would have made my mother-in-law hear my voice over and over. But sadly, this isn't the mountains. The worst part about my mother-in-law is that she only torments her daughter-in-law when her husband and daughter aren't around. She always harasses me when my husband and child aren't home. Since she is my husband's biological mother, I don't want to complain too much. However, I want him to know that I'm being bullied. After much thought, I complained about my mother-in-law in a mild manner, but it ended up having little effect. I'll talk to her. When my husband confronts my mother-in-law, she starts crying and pleads, "I'm not trying to annoy her." Then she starts claiming, "My daughter-in-law is painting me as the villain." My husband is confused and frustrated, not knowing what to make of it. All I could do was force a smile. Okay, I get it. They say the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? I planned to silently record my mother-in-law's harassment and show it to my husband. As I thought about where to place the camera, the harassment escalated even further. I started living with my mother-in-law in the spring. Time passed. The hot summer ended. Autumn passed, and winter came. One day, my husband was away on a business trip, and my daughter was staying overnight at my parents' house, so only my mother-in-law and I were at home. Looking outside, the snow was falling steadily. Thinking it was dangerous, I decided to walk to my part-time job instead of taking my usual bicycle. I usually come home in the evening, finish cleaning and laundry, and then cook dinner. It's important, so I'll say it again. It's winter now, and it's night, and the snow is falling heavily enough to pile up. It's so cold that there's no way I could do laundry by hand. Yet, as always, my mother-in-law handed me her laundry with a smile. "Here's today's laundry. These clothes are expensive, so make sure to wash them by hand." She emphasized this precisely because she fully understood my discontent. "Understood. I'll do the laundry with hot water today." "If you wash them with hot water, the colors will fade. It'll damage the clothes. So wash them with cold water no matter what." "You've got to be kidding me. Outside, the snow is falling heavily. This is too much even for me." "What are you saying? Wash by hand with cold water on such a cold day? If those clothes are so precious, why don't you wash them yourself?" I shouted out. "How can you say such a terrible thing? I'm an old woman, and you're going to make me wash with cold water? Are you okay in the head? Are you sure you're not the one who's not okay? I'm always calm." If these are words after calm judgment, then it's even more troublesome. It seems that my mother-in-law didn't expect me to talk back. She stared at me with a fierce look, but I won't back down. "Why don't you step outside for a moment, Mother? You don't understand what it's like outside because you're in a warm house. It's snowing heavily and it's incredibly cold. It's a different world from inside the house." "Huh? You're trying to throw an old woman out into the cold at night? What a horrible daughter-in-law you are. And how about you, Mother? Asking your daughter-in-law to hand wash your clothes in cold water on such a cold night? If I'm hit, I hit back. Now that things have come this far, I'm going to fight back to the very end. I feel sorry for my husband, but if we are going to live together from now on, I can't continue to be a good wife. With such feelings, I glared back at my mother-in-law with the same sharp eyes, when suddenly I was grabbed forcefully. Before I had time to think, what? My mother-in-law pulled my hand. The strength is such that it makes me think, is this the power of an old person? While I was stunned, in an instant I was thrown out the front door. Just when I was surprised and thought, what? I heard the sound of the door being locked. Mother, what are you doing? I have no need for a daughter-in-law like you. Don't come back. This is my and my husband's house. If anyone should leave this house, it should be you, not me. But my yelling is not heard by my mother-in-law. She probably has no intention of letting me in the house as things stand. I knocked on the door many times, but there was no response. I'm at a loss. What should I do? I'm not wearing a coat, and I don't even have the keys to the house with me. The only saving grace was that I had put my cell phone in my pocket. Using that cell phone, I called my house. I could hear the phone ringing inside the house, but my mother-in-law didn't answer, with no other options left. I tried calling my husband, who I heard was returning from a business trip today, but he didn't respond either. Having no other choice, I sent a message to my husband. I've been kicked out of the house by your mom. It's snowing heavily and it's impossible to stay outside. I'm going to take a refuge in a nearby convenience store. Please call me back as soon as possible. Then I started walking towards the convenience store. I thought about going to the police box, but it was too far. If I had to walk in the heavy snow, it would probably take more time than usual. For now, the best thing to do is to wait for my husband at the convenience store. I hugged my body, which I had become freezing cold, with both hands. The breath I exhaled was white. The snow still hasn't stopped falling. It keeps piling up endlessly. Because of the snow, I can't see any bikes or even cars. Before I knew it, the night was late, and there were no signs of people. I continued to walk as the cold became more severe. When I finally arrived in front of the automatic doors of the convenience store, I stood there in astonishment. Closed temporarily today due to heavy snow. The convenience store, my refuge which I reached in desperation, was closed. Can such a thing happen? Now I have no choice but to go to the police box. I wondered what time I would get there if I walked. While my anxiety grew with the endless snow in sight, I kept walking. My fingertips and toes were numb from the cold. Looking at the time on my phone, I realized that it had already been over an hour since I was kicked out of the house. I tried calling the house again, but my mother-in-law didn't answer the phone. While I was taking one step at a time towards the police box on a path that was completely different from the usual due to the snow. Ouch! I thought I heard a person's voice, so I stopped walking. I was just about to step onto the bridge over the river. Once again, I listened carefully to the sounds around me. Help me! I heard it clearly this time. I hurriedly headed in that direction. Looking down at the river from the low bridge, there was a person collapsed. An elderly woman had fallen into the shallow river and was calling out for help. I immediately approached the elderly woman. The cold river water made me feel tingle. As I progressed through the river, the sensation became more painful than cold. Then I finally reached the elderly woman. What happened to you? I can't move, and I'm cold. Please help me. It's okay." Perhaps she was relieved, thinking I would help her, and she lost her strength. The elderly woman passed out, entrusting her body to me. "This is dangerous. What should I do?" I also have lost sensation in my hands and feet, and I can't move smoothly. "Is anyone there?" The loud voice I strained to produce only echoed sadly, and I thought no one would help me. But just then, I thought I heard a man's voice saying, "Are you okay?" And then I saw my husband's face. As soon as I realized that my husband was coming towards me with a pale face, I lost consciousness on the spot. When I woke up, I saw a white ceiling. "Sally, hang in there. Are you okay?" My husband, with a worried look on his face, was staring at me. I was in a hospital, and my husband had saved me and the elderly woman from the river and had called an ambulance. Apparently, I had been asleep ever since I fainted, which was already an event of yesterday. "Did you finish your business trip?" "Yeah, when I got a call from you, I couldn't answer because I was on a train. Even when I tried to call you back after arriving at the station, I couldn't connect, and I was worried. I couldn't get a taxi, so I ran home in a hurry. On the way, I happened to spot you walking towards the river." "It's nothing short of luck." I was shocked, thinking, "Are you going to jump into the river?" It seems that it was the elderly woman who jumped, not you. The elderly woman you approached to help had become tired of life and jumped into the river, my husband said. Apparently, she tried to get out of the river, sobered by the coldness of the water, which was colder than she imagined. But she couldn't move as she wanted because her body was chilled to the core. It seems that if any more time had passed, it could have been a life-threatening situation. That means the elderly woman is alive. Feeling relieved and relaxed, sleepiness overcame me. "You must be tired. It's okay to rest and sleep." Perhaps the tension melted away, enveloped in my husband's kindness. The warmth of the hospital room also contributed, and I fell into a deep sleep. Feeling a strong anger towards my mother-in-law, my health recovered after 2 to 3 days of hospitalization. Standing in front of our home after a long time, I was stunned. My mother-in-law, who did not even come to visit me during my hospitalization, there were no words of apology. My mother-in-law, who had driven me out of the house on a snowy night and pushed me to the brink of life and death. If I were to tell the truth, I couldn't continue living together any longer. Opening the front door with a heavy heart, I was shocked by the sight I saw. My mother-in-law was kneeling at the entrance. "Mother, what is this? What on earth is happening here?" "Sally, I did something terrible. I'm sorry." While I was too surprised to move, my mother-in-law's apology reached my ears. What? Something unbelievable happened. My mother-in-law kneeling and apologizing. What? In front of me? Who couldn't speak? She bowed her head, touching the floor, and said, "I never thought that kicking you out of the house in a fit of temper would lead to this. I deeply regret what I have done. Please forgive me." She was praying with her hands clasped together. What? She's reflecting. She's sorry. That mean mother-in-law? The one who always looked down on me no matter what? The person who kicked me out into the heavy snow with just the clothes on my back? I can't believe it. Could there be some ulterior motive? I squinted my mother-in-law as if looking at something filthy. What will you do if I say I can't forgive you? I saw my mother-in-law's hand move slightly. I experienced such extreme cold that I thought I might die. If my husband hadn't found me, What would have become of my life? Before that, can't you simply imagine what would happen to someone outside in such heavy snowfall? If you couldn't, it means you're incapable of sound judgment. When I told her sarcastically, my mother-in-law started yelling. Her face turned bright red. What are you saying? You get arrogant when someone humbles themselves. My son said, if you don't apologize to Sally, we can't continue living together. So I reluctantly passed the message along. What's with that attitude? I knelt down and apologized. So that's the end of it. Got it. Now, get back to your chores around the house. She responded just as expected to the simple provocation. I found it too amusing to see my mother-in-law in such a state. Wow, as expected. The apology from the bottom of her heart was a lie. Well, people can't change that easily. People with a personality like my mother-in-law's probably won't change in a lifetime. As if to fuel my irritation, my mother-in-law restarted her daughter-in-law bullying. Please hand wash my clothes in water. Absolutely. Is she repeating that line again? She's still asking me to hand wash her clothes? Please only make meals that I like. If it doesn't taste good, I'll throw it away without eating. This is hopeless. I'm just disgusted. She is a truly hopeless person. With a heavy sigh, I turned around. So it seems. Darling? My husband was standing a little distance away from me, but my body shielded him from my mother-in-law's view. My husband was there from the beginning. My husband and my mother-in-law's beloved son was standing right here. Bob, I thought you went to work. My mother-in-law was very surprised to notice that my husband was standing there. I took a day off because I wanted to be with Sally when she was discharged from the hospital. More importantly, you don't feel sorry at all, do you? No, you've got it wrong. It's a joke. I don't find this joke funny at all. I told you to apologize from the bottom of your heart for what you did, didn't I? And I told you to promise you'll never do anything like that again, right? But I apologized. I even prostrated myself. You were just about to flip your attitude and start being mean again. But that was a joke. That's not a funny joke. I had told my husband I wanted him to stand a little away from me. The reaction of my mother-in-law was as expected. No, it was more than I expected. Seeing my mother-in-law desperately trying to make excuses made me laugh. Sally, why are you laughing? You're always... Hey, Mom, are you listening to me? I'm the one talking right now. Yes, I am. I'm sorry. It seems she can't take her darling son's words lightly. My husband's anger is still ongoing. My mother-in-law, teary-eyed, listening to his sermon. What do you mean by harassing Sally, who agreed to live with us because she was worried about you living alone? I may have gone a little overboard just now, but I didn't harass Sally. What did you just say? I have interfered with the seasoning of the food, but that was just because I wanted her to remember my taste preferences. I told her to send my clothes to the dry cleaners, but Sally said I'll hand wash them to save money. Even though I told her to put on makeup, she didn't, and she threw away cosmetics in front of me. I feel like she was trying to provoke me. How dare she say such a thing? It seems my mother-in-law wants to claim that she had nothing to do with what happened. There's only one thing to do now. I picked up my cell phone and pressed the play button on the recording data. Please hand wash the clothes I asked you to wash today. They're expensive. You can clearly hear my mother-in-law's voice. Stop it! My mother-in-law screamed loudly and tried to snatch my phone away. I skillfully dodged her hand and continued playing the audio. Because they're expensive clothes, absolutely. Without fail, wash them by hand. I have no use for daughter-in-law like this. Don't come back. The sound of her throwing me out and closing the front door also played. The silent mother-in-law who didn't respond to my cries when I was expelled. All of her words and actions from that day were replayed. I secretly put this button in my pocket and recorded everything. I had to leave evidence of my mother-in-law's words and actions, no matter what, so I always had my phone in recording mode when I talked with her. Maybe my daily conduct was good. If I didn't have my phone, I wouldn't have been able to leave any evidence. Mom, do you have anything to say? In response to my husband's question, my mother-in-law just looked blankly. Do you have anything you want to leave unsaid? Things I want to leave unsaid? Yes. What do you mean by things I want to leave unsaid? You trampled on our feelings, who wanted to live with you and ensure you were comfortable. So this is the end. We want you to leave this house. What? We're cutting ties with you, Mom. From now on, you should just live alone. Bob! We won't contact you again. Even if you try to contact us, we won't respond or see you. What? What? No way! You still have the money from selling your old home, right? You should be able to live on that and your pension, so don't expect any support from us. Bob, wait a moment. You're not planning to abandon me, are you? Abandon your only parent? It's all because you betrayed us, Mom. Unable to say anything in response to my furious husband's words, the mother-in-law collapsed onto the spot, as if drained of all her energy. The sound of snow falling from the roof echoed hollowly. It didn't take long after that. Right in front of mother-in-law, who could only just sit there, we packed up all her belongings. It was about a 2-hour train ride from our home to her hometown, where she was moving. She has relatives living in her hometown, but she has been estranged from them, so it's unlikely that anyone will take her in now. Even when she was living with us, she never went out, so she probably doesn't have any friends. So it could be said that it won't make a difference where she goes. She might have been harassing me out of boredom. Well, it doesn't matter now. Grandma, take care. Bye-bye. My daughter cheerfully waved goodbye, seeing her cute granddaughter showing no signs of sadness, only a smile. As she said goodbye, my mother-in-law couldn't help but start crying. The taxi that carried my mother-in-law away echoed with her sobs. Watching her, I felt nothing. This is what they call reaping what you sow, I thought, as I walked back into the house, feeling refreshed. Sometime later, it seems that my mother-in-law is living alone in an apartment, looking rather lonely. Judging by the incoming calls, she seems to be getting by somehow. As we have told her, we haven't seen her or spoken to her since that day. I'm sure she'll continue to live alone in loneliness. The price of crushing her own happiness was a heavy one. With my mother-in-law gone, I was finally able to live peacefully. As I listened to the washing machine, I prepared tea for a guest who arrived without notice. An elderly woman sat across from me. It was the old woman I had rescued from the river on that snowy day. The old woman, who was sick of life, seems to have been dealing with a lot of thoughts while living alone. But she said that the coldness of the water woke her up and made her decide to try looking forward again. My son asked me to live with him. That's wonderful. But his wife is a very nice person. I didn't want to be a burden of them by living together, so I declined and decided to live nearby. Is that so? I've been alone and lonely ever since my husband died. My son lives far away and I can't even see him. I thought there was nothing good about being alive, but I realized that's not true. I'm glad you came to think that way. I realize that as long as you're alive, there's hope. I'm grateful that you saved me that snowy day. With a warm smile, the old woman said this, and I returned her smile. The elderly woman who felt loneliness yet strived to live a fulfilling life had found happiness. My mother-in-law, who destroyed her happiness by choosing to live with her son and his wife. There are many forms of old age. They vary from person to person. But a single change in one's mindset can lead to happiness or misery. Comparing the two elderly women, I could faintly see the kind of old age I would like to live. To live a happy old age. I strongly etched in my heart how I should be, so as not to ruin the peaceful and happy everyday life that I have now.